Most people these days have heard of the term hyperlink. Most people immediately think of the internet and web pages, but I want to urge you to broaden your thinking just a little bit in that regard. Hyperlinks are basically anything clickable on a computer that can take us to another location. That location might be a web page, but it also might be an email address, a file on a network, or even a place in the file in which we're currently working. Now, if we take a look at it that way, that just might give us a start on thinking of some ideas on how hyperlinks can be used in files such as Word documents, especially long Word documents. Things that we have no intention of ever publishing as an actual web page, but can utilize this technology just the same. Let's see if we can find some uses for them in our business plan. Let's take a look at our executive summary. Now that's all the way back at the top of the document, so there's a couple of ways we can get there. Currently we're on page 4, and I think if we just scroll up a little bit, we'll be able to see what we need to see. At the top of the page, top of page 3 that is, we can see executive summary. But if we look at the bottom of the page, that's where you have some of that lorem ipsum dolor text. At the end of the executive summary, You Got It Training wants to provide an opportunity for people to contact the company if they want more information. Let's go ahead and allow them to do so by replacing this text with other text that's going to be a hyperlink. We'll simply start by selecting it, and then we're going to type something like, "For more information, feel free to contact our CEO." In addition, let's also invite them to visit the website. And then after we're finished, we're going to press Enter. What you will notice is that as soon as we press Enter or otherwise move off of something that Word recognizes as an email or a URL, it actually turns it into a hyperlink. Now this can be good and it can be useful unless you have no intention of providing this document in an electronic format where the link will be useful. In that case, it just becomes annoying because you find that you always have to remove it. Well, let's take a look at what some of our options are. If we move our cursor over a hyperlink, we get a little tooltip that not only tells us where that hyperlink goes, it also tells us that to use a hyperlink within Word, we have to use Control-click, not just click. You'll notice that if I hold down my Control key on the keyboard, then I get the little link finger, and that's what will allow me to actually click on the link to follow it. In this case, it would take us to the website. If we didn't want this, we could right-click on the link, but we need to have it selected first. We could certainly click and drag over the entire link, but I have found that it's often more accurate and easier to do if we right-click on the link and then choose Select the Link. That way, if there are spaces or anything else that we may not otherwise see, it's going to select the entire link. Just a little trick that I've learned with my experience. Now, when we look at this right-click menu, you'll see that there are other options. We can edit the hyperlink. We already talked about selecting it. We can also open the hyperlink, which is the same thing as clicking on it while holding Control, or we could even make a copy of the hyperlink. If we don't want this to be a hyperlink, something that's clickable, we can actually click Remove, and you'll see that it simply goes away and is formatted once again like regular text. If we don't like this auto format on any of our web or file addresses, and we kind of grow weary about always having to remove it, we can disable it. In order to disable it, you simply go to Options from the File tab, look under the Proofing category. There's an Autocorrect Options, and you can find the Auto Format as You Type tab. Take the check mark off of Internet and Network Path Names. Then say OK, and it won't do that anymore. Now with that said, not everything automatically gets formatted as a hyperlink. First of all, in our documents, we don't always want this kind of information there. We want it to be more simple and clear-cut. For example, we said, "Contact our CEO." We could actually turn this into a hyperlink. My recommendation is that you select the text first. You don't have to do that, but I recommend that you do. And notice by default that when we're dragging, it wants to include the space that follows. Again, it's not critical, but the hyperlink should just be the text. So I'm going to hold my Shift key and use my left arrow to get rid of that extra space. Now, if we go to our Insert tab, we can click on the hyperlink option and bring up a window that's very familiar if you've used hyperlinks in prior versions of Office. It also is the same with all of our different applications. Since we already selected our text, that is already under the text to display. If you did not select text, or if you selected something like a picture or a graphic, there wouldn't be any text here. Or you could type it in to create the text in this box and then have it added to the document. On the left-hand side, we notice that we can link to several different things. To an existing file or web page, to a place in this document. We can create a brand new document and create a link to it, and then of course we need to go fill out that document, or we can go to an email address. For our purposes, we want to go to an email address. Notice that when we do this, we get to do a lot of things other than just the email address. First of all, let's go ahead and type in the actual email address of our CEO. That happens to be Ian. What I also like to do is I then like to also enter a subject. That kind of lets the person know where this email is coming from. Where did it originate? And it also saves the person sending the email from having to type a subject line, which, believe it or not, can sometimes be the hardest part people think is of composing an email. Now, it doesn't mean that a person can't change this. It just means that it will be automatically filled in when a person clicks this link. That's really all we have to do. Well, it is all we have to do. As a matter of fact, the only thing we have to do is put in an email address, but I did want to show you one more thing. On the upper right, there's a button for a screen tip. This is something that will come up as that tooltip when they click or they hover over the link. This is where we can put in some more information. This is useful not only to let people know what's going to happen when they use a hyperlink, but also for people who need disabilities, or what we like to call accessibility issues. If somebody can't see the actual link, then this will go ahead and be read by something like a screen reader. So I like to always make sure we have all of those things in place. Then we say OK, and now we can see that that is formatted using the hyperlink style. If we pause over it, we get to see the tooltip, click to send an email to Ian, our CEO, and Control-click to follow the link. But hang on a second, did we just make an error? We said our CEO is Ian, I-A-N, but I'm not sure that that's exactly what we typed into the actual email address. No worries. If we want to edit the hyperlink, we can simply right-click on it, choose Edit, and that will bring this box back up. And here we can see things as well as correct things, which in this case is that we had a typo. It was I-A-M, not I-A-N. So we'll simply make that correction, and then we can say OK. That can also be useful because sometimes the email address or the person who should be contacted changes, and it's very easy to update the document. Okay, well maybe it's not so interesting or new thinking that we can create hyperlinks to email addresses and websites. But what else can we do? Well, in a long document, hyperlinks are often used as a form of navigation. We know that eventually, in the next chapter actually, we'll be creating a table of contents. During that process, we can choose to have Word create the text in the table of contents as links to the actual sections to which they apply in the document. We'll have to hold off just a little bit longer to see that, but what we can do is we can manually create this type of functionality. It needs to be done in 2 steps. It's called a bookmarked hyperlink, and first we need to create the bookmark and then create the link that goes to that. When we look at the bottom of our executive summary, we're looking for some text that we actually can use for a bookmark hyperlink. What we notice is that there is some text that might be useful for this. Remember, the executive summary is just that. It's a summary. In the last paragraph, though, we see some text that talks about multiple delivery platforms. Let's see if we can go ahead and select that. And this is ultimately what we want to create as a hyperlink, because further down in our document, we actually talk about what these multiple delivery platforms may be. But remember, we have to do this in the right order. So first, we need to find the place we want the bookmark. Then we'll come back up here to create the hyperlink. Let's use our Find feature. I know we've done this a lot in this particular course, but it gets really nice in long documents to go ahead and find our products and services. Control F brings up the text. We don't want the text though, so let's go back to our headings. Here we can to where we can find our products and services. The hyperlink to go. So we'll click Products and Services, close the window, make sure we're on the Insert tab, And right below hyperlink is the option to create a bookmark. We're going to call this Products Services without the / and without a space. That's just my best practice to always keep it alphanumeric without spaces, and that way you'll never run into any issues. Then we simply click Add, and that's all there is to it. If we had our non-printing characters turned on, we would see that there's actually a little bookmark link right there. Now we need to move back up, find our text, and create the hyperlink that's going to go to that bookmark. So remember, we were at our executive summary. We'll just scroll up, find the bottom of about page 3 that we were looking at, and once again, we need to select the text. The rest of it is almost exactly like what we did before. We'll click our hyperlink option. The text is already there, but this time we don't want to go to an email address, so we need to choose Place in this document. Here we can see anything that has been defined as a heading, and if we scroll down, we can also see bookmarks. We simply select the bookmark. Normally we would go ahead and put in a tooltip or a screen tip as well, but this time we'll just go ahead and create it, and we click OK. Now, of course, we want to test it out. You know that we have to hold our Control key, so we're holding the Control key, we're going to click, and boom, there we are, immediately down to where we need to be, which happens to be page 5 in our document. Now that we know how to work with these hyperlinks, just think of the possibilities. We can actually link to anywhere in our document and even to content that's outside of our document. What can that do to our ability to make navigation a snap? Well, maybe we should say it doesn't make our navigation a snap, it makes our navigation and access to information as simple as